All right, are you ready for another video this week? Let's get into it. Hey everyone, it's Santi from Gender Swap and welcome to my bedroom. I'm here this week to tell you a little bit more about Gender Swap and why I started it. I thought it'd be really cool for you all to just sort of learn a little bit more about why Gender Swap exists and more about myself. And if you like what you see, please subscribe because I'm going to be starting to do weekly videos, including tutorials and really cool lives, so don't miss out. Just to start off with, I am the director and founder of Gender Swap. As you can tell from my accent, I'm from Canada, but I am residing in London where Gender Swap is based. And Gender Swap is an LGBTIQ+ clothing outreach organization that supports trans and gender nonconforming people to access clothes and community. So I organize everything from workshops to pop-ups to exhibitions to any kind of online digital resources, support initiatives, anything that you can think of that surrounds makeup, wellness, self-care, and style. Gender Swap does. I am a queer, gender nonconforming person. Some of the identity labels I like to use for myself are non-binary, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, transmasculine. I have a master's in gender studies from Oxford University. My research primarily focuses on trans fashion activist movements online and looking at trans visual culture and the potential for fashion to shift social and cultural understandings of gender. So I'm really hoping to do a PhD either this year or next year on the topic to really expand on my knowledge in that area. So Gender Swap was a bit of a mistake in the way that it happened. I have always been really big on thrifting, on secondhand shopping, and basically doing a lot of DIY style stuff in my room in order to be able to create a wardrobe that I felt that expressed myself the best. And also with that, in 2017, when I started Gender Swap, I was experimenting with my gender expression and getting to know more about myself and sort of looking inward in terms of my gender identity. And I did a lot of shopping, or at least looking around for clothes and sort of connecting with community members within the LGBTQ+ community to learn more about myself. And I realized that through exchanges and through meeting more people, or I guess research on looking for places that I could access clothes and access style resources, I realized that there wasn't a lot for trans folks. So with that, with my, research interest, with my own sort of queer experience, with my love for upcycling and DIY style and thrifting, I decided to create Gender Swap. So here we are. So Gender Swap started in 2017 and I started it as just community clothing swap so people could exchange resources. And when it comes to clothes and the LGBTQ+ community, there actually isn't tons of resources. So yes, there's tons of queer fashion blogs, there's tons of really neat fashion influencers, and we're seeing more and more that there's sort of this leaning towards androgynous and gender neutral clothing lines. But when it comes to really accessible, attainable, easy resources for people who are just starting off, maybe people who aren't well connected to the fashion world, people who just want to feel good about themselves, need sort of some quick tips, or just need a community to exchange resources from and learn from, there wasn't much. So I decided to create Gender Swap. So from community clothing swaps, there was, and just through sort of interacting with people at the swaps, I realized that there was a really big demand and a request for transitional items such as binders or packers. There was also a high request for makeup and wigs and other kinds of things that would make someone feel more gender euphoric. So Gender Swap really has expanded since 2017, and that was primarily due to the demand of the community. So since clothing swaps, we've expanded to do online workshops and of course in-person workshops as well. Anything from DIY alterations to makeup tutorials to just styling workshops to learn how to style yourself, learning how to create different silhouettes and shapes for your body and to feel more gender euphoric. It's also expanded to tons of collaborations. Gender Swap has partnered with Lush Cosmetics, with MAC Cosmetics, with Jekyll Black Cosmetics, style influencers and Instagram influencers as well. And also at the moment, 5-month-long series of workshops that support the trans community with wellness, style, and makeup resources. So it's really huge. And by outreach and outreach organization, what we mean by that is that Gender Swap reaches out to the community with resources like we think that they need, sort of continuously provide resources and renew and restructure resources based on that demand. So going back to me and my experience, besides having a long, or I guess kind of a patchy but extensive at the same time academic background in gender studies and cultural studies, I am also a makeup artist. I went to makeup school in Canada. I worked as a makeup artist for 5-ish or more years. I continue to do some freelance as well as provide makeup tutorials on IGTV. I also have a background in mental health work, so I worked for 2 years in Canada for an NGO that supported people with substance misuse issues and individuals facing homelessness. And through that, I really was able to connect to trans individuals and did a little bit of helping with clothing donations or just sort of support in that kind of realm, in that field. So that's how Gender Swap came to be. I don't think that we talk enough about style accessibility and the fact that shopping centers and mainstream shopping centers or even just mainstream brands overall are highly stuck to the binary, which means that you go into a mall, you have to pick between a men's and a women's section, a men and a women's change room, and there's not much variety. And on top of that, even within those sections, fine, you can find things that fits your style, but it's really, really difficult to find sizing and cuts that actually fit gender nonconforming bodies. So even though Gender Swap doesn't design clothes, we do help folks to alter their clothes to fit them better, or to find ways to style those clothes to make people feel better in them. And also in the future, hopefully, there will be more of a design aspect to Gender Swap. But going back to that also, I upcycle a lot of clothes and also deliver a lot of upcycling workshops. I love to create new clothes out of old ones and paint and sew and patch and cut things up and embroider and you name it. So if you're interested in any of that, you can check out the IGTV tutorials that I have on the Gender Swap Instagram page, so genderswap_. Going back to style or fashion accessibility and experiences in mainstream shopping centers, when I was initially experimenting with it's a very extensive story. I've been experimenting with my gender expression, of course, my whole life, but I came out as queer, 10-ish years ago. Clothing has always been a really important part of my identity and the way that I project myself out in the world and the way that I communicate with others. And for me, even from a young age, I was always really hyper fixated on the way that my outfits looked and the way that they matched and when I was pairing things together. And that never really went away. And I do want to touch on the fact that a lot of people think that fashion or style or makeup is really superficial and why should we care about it? It's not about caring about how trendy you look and what the latest trends are. It's more about the fact that the way that we dress, the way that we take care of our skin, or how we wear makeup or our hair really affects the way that we feel about ourselves. But also, even if you're not consciously aware of it, we all get up in the morning and we put something on because we're going out into the world and we want to be read a certain way. We potentially want to have certain people maybe attracted to us. Potentially we're part of a subculture. We want to signal that to people. So clothing is really, really important. I remember once at a radio interview, someone said, well, cis-hets like to wear clothes, or find clothes important to them as well. And I was like, absolutely. But the major difference is the fact that cis-het people, non-trans, non-gender, non-conforming people could go into a shop at any time and find, most likely, at least 99% of the time, something that they're after, right? Whereas that's much harder for our community. So that's why Gender Swap exists. Gender Swap is the only clothing outreach community and organization in the UK and actually within Europe. So there is definitely a need. So with Gender Swap, it's been so amazing since 2017. I've had the opportunity to travel to Bulgaria, to Ireland, to Northern Ireland, to different parts of the UK, to Wales, to deliver workshops, to deliver events. And It's just been so amazing to create this global network. So on top of being the creative director of Gender Swap and being a workshop facilitator, an event manager, basically you name it, whatever label you want to add to that you can. A makeup artist, an academic, to a certain degree, an activist. I do a lot of grassroots organizing, also a consultant. So I've recently launched a gender awareness training in various institutions, organizations, and businesses on trans inclusivity and safe spaces, and just educating people on gender diversity through the medium of fashion. Because ultimately, the way that we see gender and gender diversity is mainly based on an external expression. And so I think it's really important to sort of break that down for people, to ask people, what does gender look like? What does trans look like? So for anyone out there that's watching this and you think that you could, with even just some Gender 101 or Trans 101 training, please do get in touch. You can find all my links down below. Another important aspect about Gender Swap is the fact that Gender Swap exists, of course, as a trans support organization, but it also is very much a project that is rooted in a more wider sort of liberation movement. Because when it comes to clothes, society is so binary in the way that we express ourselves, right? We expect men to wear certain things, we expect women to wear certain things. We also read gender based on certain, physical or aesthetic traits. And so Gender Swap really exists to promote people to be whoever and wear whatever, that's our slogan, and to really sort of promote more awareness in society so people can express themselves the way that they wish without facing any stigma or without being sidelined, but also to challenge society on the way that we see gender, right? For example, we may see somebody who looks like a man as a man is deemed to look like in society, wearing blue and wearing very stereotypical modes of dress that would be attributed to a man. That's what I'm here to say is, and to challenge you on is, and why Gender Swap exists, is to say, you may be looking at a person wearing all of those things, but those specific clothes or forms of dress don't always equate to how someone identifies. Sometimes, a lot of the times they do, and a lot of binary trans people do like to adopt those forms of dress, but a lot of people don't, and we just don't know. So how can we challenge ourselves to see gender differently? So that's the ultimate goal. So I hope that sort of explains a little bit more. If you've got any questions about myself or more about my experiences, if you've got more questions about Gender Swap, if you want to actually join our community, maybe get involved, maybe you want to deliver an IGTV video, maybe you want to do a YouTube collab, who knows? You can contact us and follow us on all our socials, and yeah, just get in touch. We're always happy to form more connections. I just wanted to leave you with a question today, and maybe something I'm going to answer in next time's video, but I wanted to ask you what clothing accessibility means to you, and also sharing your experiences around being a gender nonconforming person or trans person who's been accessing clothes, and what are the barriers you've faced, what are some amazing sort of euphoric safe spaces you've accessed, and what style resources can Gender Swap bring you that you haven't seen already. And just to note, if you do want to check out what we have, please head to genderswap.org. We have an entire resource bank. We've got all of our event listings, and we have lots of our services listed. So we are here to support you through and through. I'll leave you with that. Please comment down below. Please subscribe if you like what you see. Take care, everyone.